Um, when we reflect on the link between human resources management on the one hand and leadership, strategic leadership, um, one of the main conclusions we make is quite often we HR people, we sometimes feel like, well, we're not taking seriously. So from the viewpoint of strategic leadership, HR sometimes still lacks the necessary strategic importance. And very often we see that whatever HR function we have, whether it's a recruitment, selection, or training, competency development, or other steps of the HR process, we're doing our jobs, we're using our own language, and the world of top management and strategic thinking is not always completely connected to that. One of the origins of that disconnection and some of the challenges we're talking about today, um, we believe, is because we speak a different language. And with that, I mean that the language of HR is very often a language which talks about soft skills and hard skills and recruitment and competency models and lots of interesting stuff. We're very excited about as HR people. But the language top management speaks is a language of strategic goals and performance management and key performance indicators and return on investment and budgets and budgetary controls. So if we're looking for solutions to that gap between HR and leadership, we feel we need to find connections with them. And a big way of enhancing this connection is by addressing management, leadership, using management speak. And I don't want to imply anything negative by that, but using management speak in an HR position means trying to convey our messages in such a way that what we do is in line with strategic and operational goals of top management. That what we're trying to do in HR, we're also trying to formulate it in data, measurable data, work as evidence-based as possible, using key performance indicators whenever we can, even for heaven's sake, even maybe try to make a kind of cost-benefit ratio calculation. I'm going to give 4 examples, and I'm not saying these are magic solutions, but I'd like to share with you 4 examples of how the Belgian Federal Civil Service in HR we've been trying to bridge the gap with management. And one example is the use of HR data science. In our organization, in our HR departments, we have data scientists who help us translate the different HR processes in data and data flows. And we find this very helpful, not only for ourselves in our HR processes, because then we have data and we can steer the steps we're going to take in the different HR fields based on these data. But we also find that using data and data science in HR is a very big connector with top management and leadership, because they speak the language of data. And I'm sharing on this slide just one example. I could share 100 of examples from different HR processes. This is just one example of how we're using data science to measure many things we do in the field of training and learning, in competency development and talent development. This is just a slide that gives a kind of overview of how our online learning offer between 2020 and 2022 has evolved. And I'm not going into the details of this. There are some trends you see, like the overall participant rate has gone down. We can calculate and figure up to the percentage, how many people have registered for courses, how many people take what kind of subjects for a second time, how many unique visitors we have, and so on. So um, when when our HR arrives at the table of leadership, these are the things that speak to them. These graphs, these data, these infographics. Um, and I know in the field of learning and development, um, we're not naturally born with these kind of graphs and data because we're many of us are soft skill oriented, and even in the more harder HR processes, we're not always, or we haven't always included data science in such an extensive way. We find now that including data science also in the recruitment processes, in career management, to have objective figures and data, it helps us to bridge this gap with top leadership. Second example is the use of strategic personnel planning. And to a certain extent, this, I think, kind of resembles or has some characteristics in common with what Faustine just mentioned in her presentation. It's about trying to grasp what is going around you, what the challenges are that are arriving or are there already, and to what extent the ever-changing environment impacts the procedures and the goals and the challenges, as well on the strategic management level, but equally on the HR level, because when they are linked, changes in the environment or challenges that we're all facing, and Faustine mentioned some of them, we're facing the same things, like how can we introduce a green policy, how to handle AI. These are the kind of topics which are also taken into account in our strategic personnel planning. And the big difference with the past in terms of personnel planning, that before 2015, personnel planning was a rather mathematical kind of issue. Most ministries had their personnel plans, and if someone with a university degree, level A3, left the organization, well, your personnel plan was that static that you could replace that person with another person from the same level and the same experience. We've changed lots of things in that aspect. Top management now of every ministry is responsible for their own personnel envelope. So they have a budget, a personnel envelope. With this personnel envelope, they can themselves decide which kind of actions to take. And strategic personnel planning helps them a lot to plan the future actions they're going to take in terms of personnel. Because first of all, it measures on a regular basis, and currently this is done 4 times per year. It takes a kind of photograph of where we are now in terms of budget spending related to personnel costs, but it also makes predictions for the future. It knows, and usually these personnel planning systems, they are based on an IT tool. Ours is called SVEP. So they make prognosis and predictions for the future, so that we know exactly, like, okay, even though we spend this amount of budget now, maybe in September we'll spend 15% more because these and these and these people will have made an automatic promotion, and this will happen. Or maybe we'll spend less because these and these and these people have retired. This is put next to what are the main challenges we should try to face. So maybe if 20 secretaries who did rather operational jobs, if they're leaving the organization in the next 12 months, maybe they shouldn't be replaced automatically by the same 20 people from a secretarial level. If the new challenge is facing AI, maybe we should rather recruit a smaller number of persons with a higher education, so we're going to pay them more, but who are experts in the field of AI. And the personnel planning tool basically allows us to take into account all of this: budget, natural developments in the personnel plans, challenges in the environment around us, linked to the strategic goals of the organization. And this is a valuable instrument. So our people working on this strategic personnel planning they report to the board of governors of our organization, to the top managers of our civil service, because this will help them making strategic and operational decisions about where to go to in terms of recruitment or promotion or other HR aspects. Third example I'd like to share of how we try to connect HR with the language and the input from top management and leadership is in our training and learning offer. In the past, we had training catalogs with lots of trainings, and we still have them. But in the past, most of the things in our training catalog were there simply because they'd been there the year before. And if you ask someone, hey, why is this leadership training or why is this digital training in the catalog? The answer was quite often, well, I don't know, it was there last year. And last year it was there because it was there the year before. We completely changed that. So we make now an evidence-based needs analysis to decide what we're going to put in our global curriculum. And there are different inputs. One input is, again, the use of data. We do benchmarks. We go and check what others are doing. We take into account our clients and customers. These are the other civil services in Belgium. But a very important input there is coming from strategic management and leadership. So on a kind of structured basis, we're going towards leadership and top management, asking them, what are your priorities? Where do you want to be with your ministry? And then let's see how our training and learning and competency development offer can help your organization going towards the strategic direction you want to go to. Second example linked to this is the use of global development plans. So most ministries now, and we facilitate this, have a global development plan in the organization, which is not just a list of the different topics they want to train their people on, but the topics are linked to the strategic goals of the organization. And in line with that as well, we've now, since last year, have launched, our minister has launched a federal learning strategy, which is a document, a pretty comprehensive document spread throughout the civil service, where we feel like, look, learning is not just taking a course in whatever you want. There is a strategy behind it. We'd like to be a learning organization, and there's the link or the bridge with management. We all know that our budget is limited. We all know that we're living in an area where it's not possible anymore to replace every single person that leaves the organization. So instead of focusing too much on the recruitment, we should look at the majority, the vast group of talents and competences we have, some of them still up to date, some of them very outdated. So we have to look how training and development can help our staff acquiring, upskilling, reskilling to acquire the right skills that are in line with the strategic goals of the organization. And then the last thing to wrap this up, a last example of the link with strategies.
Sorry, Peter.
Yes.
You have a minute.
Yes, I'm my last slide. So the Career Center is another last example there, where we've created a center with experts that work throughout the administration and that help people develop their careers. They also created a Federal Reserve, for instance. So, and this is what strategic management is like. Whenever there's an issue in one organization, they know there's this special critical reserve of staff that could be dispatched very quickly to tackle the sometimes operational issues there are. So to sum it up, we moved actually from quite a lot of emphasis on basic HR administration, calculating holidays, whatever, to a lot more strategic HR operation, because we feel like this is in line with what strategic leadership expects us to do. That was my presentation. Thank you for that.